Gotham Knights hasn't exactly gotten the best reviews. Now, I don't usually like to dismiss a game without trying it, because so often people like to bash games just because it's sort of the hip, cool thing to do. It's easy to hate on some of these games, especially when they make really bold design choices. So, you know what? We don't want to take anything for granted. Let's try the game and see if it actually is that rough. Quick sidebar, we actually played this game for like 4 hours on stream on launch day. If you want to hang out with us live while we play games like this and talk about them and react to videos and game news stories, all that fun stuff, check out the link in the description box below the like button. Luke Stevens live here on YouTube. We also have tons of stream highlights that go up. Videos like this get made all the time. Head over there, check it out. Maybe I'm live at this very moment, you never know. Come by and say hi, I'd love to see you. Now, the first thing people have been bringing up with regards to Gotham Knights is the performance. And without a doubt, it doesn't run super well. I run this game with a 3080 and a 5950X with 64 gigs of RAM. Like, the Rolls Royce of gaming computers that you could expect to run a game like this on is what I have here. Not because I'm trying to flex, but because whenever I critique a game or do a review, I want people to know that if I talk about performance issues, that's like full on true. It's not about my hardware having issues. I gave this game as many opportunities to perform well as I possibly could, and it still performed badly. So the fact that we currently are running at 1440p without ray tracing and still maxing out at like 70 frames, that's rough. And we're not even moving through the city yet. If I jump down here, I can call my bat cycle, I guess is what we call it, and then we can drive through the city, and you'll see that pretty much immediately the performance will start to take some hits. You see, we start hitching every once in a while. We drop down into the 50s, down into the 40s. And again, this is on hardware that is well above what they recommend for 1440p gaming in this title. So stability is not its strong suit. And of course, on console, this game is capped at 30 FPS. But I do want to just quickly say something about that, because I've heard a lot of people mention this 30 FPS thing, and I think it's generally fairly stupid, and let me explain why. You see, to dismiss a game simply because it runs at 30 FPS, to me, just doesn't make any damn sense. I get it, in 2022, we want better performance, we want 60 frames, I get all of that, but here's the thing. Some of the best games ever made ran at 30 frames. Red Dead Redemption 2 ran at 30 frames. Breath of the Wild ran at 30 frames. The Witcher 3 ran at 30 frames on all of these consoles, the top of the line consoles at the time that they released. And those games were still tremendous. If they released nowadays, sure, we would wish we could get 60 frames, but just because a game runs at 30 doesn't mean that it can't be remarkable or tremendous. It's just not true. You can wish it was 60, but that doesn't make it a bad game. What does a bad game make is poor performance. And that's where I can't defend Gotham Knights or excuse any of this stuff, because without a doubt, this game isn't avoiding 60 FPS on consoles because it's just so graphically impressive and it's just so expansive and boundary breaking that it has to run at 30. No, this game runs at 30 on consoles because it's extremely poorly optimized and it just doesn't run very well, even on PC. But okay, let's say we're just sitting here to play the game casually on a Saturday afternoon like it is right now. What are we gonna do? Well, you see, we're playing as Batgirl. We can select any one of the 4 main heroes, whether it's Batgirl, Nightwing, Red Hood, or Robin. In this case, I'm playing with Batgirl because my buddy Caleb wanted to do co-op as Red Hood, so we just decided to play different characters. And funny thing about co-op, on the Steam version of the game, co-op wasn't working to directly invite friends on launch day. It just wasn't. Here's a little segment from our live stream of us trying to get it working. And as you can see, we restarted the game multiple times. We did everything we could and we couldn't get it working. Complete subcase 1.2, return to the Belfry, and co-op is unlocked with a notification. We got the notification though, I'm pretty sure. Caleb is watching over Gotham City. Join player as Batgirl.
Is it doing?
Like, but that's the thing, we're not doing anything wrong. Like, this is how it's supposed to work. You go here, you see the player in game, you hit join, you select the character, and then it's supposed to connect you. Like, the staple feature of this game, the co-op, is just not working. And we've both done full restarts and still nothing. That's insane. Now, we had about 550 people in chat on that day for that stream, and nobody could get that working on PC. So it seems like it was just broken on the Steam version of the game for whatever reason. You could still quick play with random people online, but you couldn't play with your friends, which I thought was the whole point of the game. But you know what? They'll probably patch that eventually. They'll get around to it. So let's look at what we would actually be doing if we were playing this casually. Well, if we go here, you see just tapping on select, we get a bunch of different missions and things that pop up. Fast travel recommendations, how to start your fast travel discovery process. Knighthood, this is how you unlock the ability to traverse with their staple moves. So for like Red Hood, that big like seismic fart that he does, that's how you unlock it, by grinding these things out. And funny thing, this takes like an hour to 2 hours of grinding to unlock for each character. Every single character has to have it unlocked separately. And the thing is, if I pull up the map, these little events that you have to go and fight, so like this one, if I do this, that counts as one of the 10 that I have to complete in order to progress to completing the full 10 that unlocks my special ability. These only generate like 1 to 3 of them each time you go out into Gotham, and then to reset it, you have to travel back to the Belfry, cycle forward a day, and then they spawn again the next night. So the whole thing is just built to be as mind-numbingly tedious as imaginable. But you know what, let's go over here. Let's actually complete this, because this is what a lot of people will be doing. They'll pull open the map, they'll look for a crime that they need to complete, and then they'll travel to it to complete that crime. Or you can go to these little markers here, which are smaller crimes, but these don't count towards your progression anywhere near as much as these premeditated crimes, so we're gonna seek out those. And okay, we have the marker on the map. Now how do we get there? Well, until you've completed that grindy thing, this is how you're gonna be traveling, with this little grapple hook, jumping from roof to roof, and you see those frame drops don't exactly make this super comfy. Or we can use that bat cycle, which we can spawn out of thin air like this, which I know it's not a big deal. I kind of hate that. I think that the way they did it in Arkham Knight was so much better, because you could just like, it would come from around the corner of a building, and so you didn't have to watch it just like appear out of thin air. I don't know. I just don't personally like that design choice. I wish it were a little more grounded. But as we make our way to our location, you'll notice that the city feels a little weird. It's got NPCs that spawn. It has cars driving on these streets. All of the cars, the glass is fully clouded out, so you can't see inside the cars. It reminds me of like Crackdown 3. You know, it doesn't look good at all. Like, you can't see the NPCs in there. That guy just appeared out of nowhere. And weirdly, because the world is so empty, usually driving on the sidewalks is actually faster than staying on the roads, because they're usually more empty than the roads are. Oh, those frame rates are rough. But okay, we go over here, and this is where we are for this mission. So as you see, we have our objectives in the top left: stop the robbery, defeat all enemies. There's 9 of them. And then bonus money, we can secure more money if we acquire that. Defeat enemies with perfect attacks. Okay, cool. Challenge accepted. Let's go check this out. Now, as you can see, there's a bunch of door markers around the building. What this is are different entry points, basically, which you would expect with the game sort of pushing for stealth to be a staple feature. You can go in here and access it from various points. And we can also do sort of the bat scan to see where people are. Now, if I drop down, I can quickly take this guy out with a stealth knockout. Drop him. Sweet. Get a little XP for that. Scan this guy. He's running around trying to collect money. Okay, let's go get this guy first. Okay, I was spotted, so I'm just gonna fight him. Now, one of the things about this game is that you can clearly see it was heavily influenced by Spider-Man Miles Morales. Like, it's not even close. I would say the original game from 2019, I think it was, with the Spider-Man for PS4, but it feels much more Miles Morales. Not only are the character designs for a lot of these enemies almost identical, with that big arm robotic thing being something we saw in Miles Morales, but even how the guns work, it's pretty much identical. It's a little ridiculous. You see the purple electric shock and everything, almost identical to what we saw in Miles Morales. It's like kind of insane how identical it is. Now, as the game goes on, to be fair, it does get a little more robust. So you see here, I've got maybe I can pull this up. Will it pause it? It will. So if I go over to the gear section, you can see that we have a bunch of options for crafting. Oh, it doesn't pause it. That's my bad. I'm a little surprised it doesn't pause it. I get it, like you don't want to make upgrades while you're fighting enemies, but I'm a little surprised that pulling up the menu doesn't just pause the game, but whatever. Okay, these guys are hiding over here for some reason. I don't really understand why. The AI is pretty freaking dumb. And then we get a finisher move for the last guy. He's out. Crime resolved. Done. And if we check our little counter now for knighthood, you see now we're up to 8 out of 10 instead of 7 out of 10. So we have to do that type of mission 10 times in order to unlock the basic traversal abilities. And to give them due credit, if I zip up here, let's say we get out of the way, maybe we go up here. You'll see after these crimes are completed, the police will go and search the area because basically you call them and tell them, hey, there's a bunch of guys knocked out and they need to be arrested and rounded up. So they just traveled out from here where they were chilling for some reason, and then they go in there and clean up after you, which I thought was a good touch. I like that instead of just leaving like you've done in a lot of the other like Arkham games, for example, when no cops show up and they just sort of despawn after you're done. I do think that's a good touch. So props Warner Brothers for that. I do like that change. But what I was gonna show you is if we pull up the menus, for one, you'll notice now there are no more premeditated crimes. If I want to progress and continue grinding that out, I have to travel back to the Belfry, reset the day and the progress, and then go back out the next night in order to continue progressing, which is just a little stupid. But if I pull back here to the gear and abilities section, you see we have the ability to add all of these mods to our suits if we want to. And then we also can craft different things, suit upgrades, melee upgrades, ranged upgrades, which can all be well worth the trouble. You see I do this, boom, except once we're back at the Belfry, it'll be added. Okay, whatever. I don't understand why we really need to do this, but okay. And then if we move over to abilities, you'll see this is where the game's progression is centered. If we go down into the menus and the skill trees, you can see that there's some specialized abilities that you'll be able to unlock as you go further and further, but they're all like pretty far out. And so you're only going to really feel like each of the heroes are different hours into the game, which most players are going to try one of these heroes, see what they think of it, and then move on to the next one, try them out, see what they think of it, to experiment and see which one fits with their play style. They're not going to sit down. They don't want to spend 10 hours grinding in order to figure out what that character is like compared to all of the others. And it's just such a bizarre choice in terms of design to start all of the heroes almost identically and then just move on from there and expect people to grind it out and be happy with it. It reaffirms one of the ideas that's been put forward by many people, most of which who are triggered by the god-awful UI that you see on the screen. I mean, it's just dreadful. But also because of the crafting, if we go over to gear, like I was saying earlier, you see all of these different crafting components with uncommon, common, rare, ultra rare, those types of things. It just screams live service game that you'd be able to buy like loot boxes that would then randomly drop these crafting components that you can use to level up your characters faster and to be more powerful. It just screams live service title, which is something that I actually totally believe. People were saying maybe this game was originally designed as a live service game and then it was kind of converted into a sort of co-op narrative game later once the Avengers failed so terribly. They realized that wasn't a viable model anymore. I don't know. What I would say is more likely that happened is after they saw the overwhelming success of like Spider-Man on PS4 and then Miles Morales, they decided that they were going to lean into something more like that, but with co-op, and they decided to just try and jerry-rig everything into that new format. And there's still remnants of the live service title within this game, with the grind, with the weird design choices of all of the characters being super bland until you spend a good chunk of time with them. It's just weird stuff like that. And if you don't believe me that the characters are all really, really samey, let me just show you something. So in combat, each of the characters have a few basic moves. They have a light attack, where you tap X, a strong attack, where you hold down X, big old kick, and then with your Y button, you can do a quick ranged attack, and then if you hold it down, a heavy ranged attack, okay? That's how it works. You also have these different abilities if you hold down right bumper that you can trigger, such as this one where we jump up and throw down some batarangs to push people back with ranged abilities. Those are a little more unique to each character, but in terms of the core combat, which you're going to be spending the majority of fights using, it's light, heavy attack, quick, and then heavy ranged, okay? That's all we're playing with. Now, they told us that each of these main characters were going to play markedly differently. Do you think they do? Okay, well, we're gonna run over here. Let's swap to like Red Hood. Let's try him out. And then we're gonna go out on patrol. By going back out, we get all of these big loading screens every time we try to do anything. It drives me absolutely crazy. Like, what is this, 2014? But okay, now we're back out in Gotham. Let's see what this guy's attacks are like, because again, they're each supposed to feel different. Batgirl is supposed to be about agility and stealth, whereas Red Hood is about these ranged attacks, and then also being a big, brawny, brawly brute. Do you like that alliteration? I'm kind of proud of that. Totally meant to do it too. Okay, what are his attacks like? Okay, let's do a light melee. Okay, that's the same. Heavy melee. Okay. And then what are his ranged attacks like? Because he's got guns after all. Surely it's going to be different than Batgirl. If we tap Y, a quick ranged, okay? And if we hold Y, like a shotgun blast. Almost identical to what Batgirl was doing. Like here, Jacob, just put those side by side on screen just so people can see that they're the same exact attacks, just with a different coat of paint. In one, she's throwing batarangs to make this like wide blast, and then for him, he's blasting, I guess, like a shotgun shell or something. I don't really understand what he's doing, but it's the same freaking attack. It's just with a different skin on it. And I can guarantee you, when you are actually in combat and you're fighting people, it plays the exact same. It's not any different. It's just with a different coat of paint. So if you're a player trying out different characters, trying to figure out what you want to do and who you want to main as, bouncing between the characters is a total waste of time because they're all going to be identical. And like I said, if we pull up the menus and we look at some of these skills and abilities that we can unlock, you see that there are ways to make this character stand out compared to the other ones in the roster, with special abilities specifically targeted around their play styles. With Red Hood, he can aim longer at a target, deal 4x the damage, or here, every round Red Hood shoots has a small chance to deal 5x damage, only applies to ranged attacks and precision aim. Okay, cool. But the things that make the characters unique are locked behind grind, because you will only unlock those abilities once you've unlocked certain ability points that take gameplay time and effort to acquire. Now, I'm not asking for all of these things to be unlocked from the moment that you start playing as the character. I understand that progression is something that players like to feel in video games such as these. I get that. All I'm saying is that if you're going to sell your game and pitch it as having 4 different characters, all of whom play differently and appeal to different play styles more generally, you should make sure they feel different when players first start playing with them. Not identical with just slightly different sort of coats of paint over the same attack animations and same attack effects. Now, this is why I've said that I think Gotham Knights seems like a game that really hits its stride later on. It seems like the introductory hours when you're first grinding all of this out for each of your characters is probably a real trudge and not particularly fun. So I'm going to keep playing. I'm going to keep giving it a shot, even though it has its fair share of issues. And when we critique the game and talk about it, I'm going to try and be as fair as I possibly can, because I feel like I owe that to you guys, at least, who sit through these videos, watch, and support me. You know, it's the least I can do. I could just, at this point, be like, I'm not having fun. I'm going to walk away and give up on it. But you know what? I'm going to give it a fair shake. We're going to keep going and see what this game has to offer in the long run. To its credit, I do think the story is compelling. If you look behind me, actually, I've got these, which are, and I pull them out ever so delicately. You'll notice I've got the full new 52 collection of comic books, including this one, which you'll notice is the Court of Owls, which is what this game is based on. So I love these storylines, and I do think that there's a lot of potential in the narrative here, especially with how they set up the game with Batman being recently deceased, same with Jim Gordon. There's a lot of cool stuff that they can do here. The real bellwether for whether or not this game is able to save itself is whether or not the story is enough to continue pushing players through the monotonous grind that they have sprinkled all over this title. It seems so bizarre that they would take a great story and then spread it out with chunks of just bland, monotonous bullcrap the only explanation I can come up with is either the designers were high when they designed this because it's just mindless, or it was originally designed as something else. It was built around being grindy, but you can bypass that grind by paying extra for it through loot boxes and that type of thing. And then at some point they realized that was going to be a bad PR move, so they decided to get rid of the loot boxes, and they were just left with the grind with no remedy built into the game anymore. My only hope is that as time goes by, the grind lessens and maybe the main story picks up more and more and more, which some people have said that's exactly what happens. It's just a really slow start to the game. But here's the deal at the end of the day. Game designers are not entitled to your money or your time. They have to earn it. And if the way they earn it is by beginning with a really terrible, grindy opening section that lasts 10 hours, that's on them. It's not your fault for deciding that, hey, I'm not compelled by this. I'm going to return it through Steam because I'm under 2 hours, and I'm going to get my money back and play something that I do know I will, in fact, enjoy. It's not your fault for expecting the game to draw you in from the start. That's on them, not on you. It's similar to like the acquired taste thing. You know, like you have that one friend who likes just disgusting drinks or cocktails when you go to the bar with them. And they're like, well, no, it's an acquired taste. You just have to like keep drinking it for months and months, and eventually you'll understand it and you'll really, really like it. I know right now it tastes like lighter fluid, but eventually you'll like it once you've acquired the taste, like a good brandy or whiskey that just tastes like fire. You know, if you want to acquire that taste and get like educated on what makes a good whiskey, and if you want to go through those steps to acquire that taste, good on you, go for it. But you shouldn't blame other people when they're like, why would I do that when I love me a Mike's Hard Lemonade just as much, if not way more, because I know I like that right now. I already have that taste. I don't need to acquire it by grinding out all this unnecessary tripe when I know for a fact I already like this other thing, and I would rather just start with that. And okay, it's been like a day and a half. I've played a lot more of Gotham Knights. I just wanted to let you know that I haven't like given up on this. I've stuck by my word. I'm trying to give this game a fair shake. And one thing that I know will inevitably come to pass is that if I don't address the special abilities that you get through those knighthood quest lines, then people are going to be like, well, the game doesn't really start till you get those. So I do want to say I did grind it out for Batgirl, specifically here for demonstration purposes. And basically after all of that grinding to work through those 10 different little things that you get here, you then unlock the ability to glide like this, where you can hold down right trigger and then you glide up and down. And honestly, it feels pretty good, at least on PC at higher frame rates. On Steam Deck, it runs at about 15 frames a second when you try to do this, which is, you know, quite painful. It's not really playable at that point, but it is nice. I will say it's unfortunate that the zip lining and grapple hook you see, it takes you completely out of it. And then if you want to try to do it, she still jumps off. The actual rappel thing doesn't launch you up like it's done in the Arkham games since Batman Arkham City, I think, is the first game that implemented that. And that's over 10 years old. So the fact that the gliding in this game is already markedly worse than a game from 10 years ago kind of hurts my soul. And also, just to be honest, it's nowhere near fluid enough, I think, to justify bypassing the other modes of transportation. I was really hoping that it would be good enough to justify, like, oh, I'll just glide around the city. That's way more fun than riding the bat cycle or whatever we want to call it. But unfortunately, you don't move fast enough to really justify going through all that trouble. A lot of the time, it's still faster to just take the bike, which then begs the question, okay, well, then why did we spend all that time grinding out these upgrades to be able to glide? It just doesn't make sense, especially when you go to locations like this with the bridge where you need to go across a vast expanse, and it's just not very practical. I mean, look how slowly she's going. We can dive and then quickly scoop back up, but we're still going like freakishly slow for being a superhero gliding through the air. It's just, and like the agility is terrible. It's just really, really painfully unfortunate. So I'm going to keep playing. I'm going to keep grinding. Who knows? Maybe I'll like Red Hood's like cosmic fart move enough to justify playing through the rest of the game with him. But so far, every time I reach a milestone that I'm excited to reach and that I think is going to make the game markedly better, it's just another disappointment. It's just one more slice of disappointment turkey on the sub that is this game's miserable launch. And it's just really unfortunate because in concept, I really like what they did here. I like the idea of being able to do co-op superhero stuff with your friends, being able to go through a pretty dark and gritty story with a new take on it, especially in terms of gameplay. But time and time again, every little design choice they made is just bafflingly stupid, and it just works so much worse than every other superhero game that has come out in the last 10 years. And it's just really, really unfortunate. If you're enjoying the game, awesome, I'm glad. But I mean, even this, like, I just want to hop up onto this thing. I'm holding jump. I can't step up on this. Like, how is that? What are we doing? Yes, Batgirl. I can't, that step is pretty big. I can leap off a building, but God forbid I try to step on a platform that's 3 feet tall. So all of that said, we're going to keep grinding this out, giving the game a fair shot and playing it. And I'm going to see this through, even though I'm not really having fun right now. But that's what we do here on Luke Stevens. We are miserable for your entertainment. I mean, come on, it's not really miserable. Like, I'm playing video games for a living, like Cry Me a River, right? Like, I don't care. I'm living the dream and I owe it all to you guys. So, I might joke about it, but I still owe all of this to you guys. So truly, thank you. But I'm going to leave it there. I think we're going to be playing this game more on Monday's live streams. So if you're seeing this on a Monday, a Wednesday, or Friday, we're live all of those days over on the Luke Stevens channel. Come hang out, check it out with us. I would love to see you over there and we have a great time. But I'm going to get back to it. Thanks for watching. I love all of you. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of new videos, and like it if you did enjoy the video. Share it with a friend even if you're feeling particularly helpful. But with that, I'm gonna go. I love you all. I'll see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.